Alright, so we're going to get started on Revit 2019 Demo 10. We're going to continue where we left off from Demo 9. It's going to open up on this interior elevation sheet, but we want to just snap over to level 1. And for this lecture, we're going to be adding multiple floors in Revit. So I'm going to show you how to add additional levels. For this class, we're obviously just going to be creating a one-story home for Mr. Peterson, but you will need to create additional levels to be able to adjust and set heights to other elements. We can get into that a little bit later, but for now, let's get started. We're going to come in and hit Window. We're going to select a few different types of windows from our element selector here, and we're going to place a couple windows just across the western wall and the northern wall, and maybe one on the southern wall. And so I'm just coming through here selecting different types of windows, and you'll notice that I have tag on placement on. That's intentional because I want to show you how these particular windows are different by their type mark. And then we'll go ahead and grab a triple casement and just kind of place this one here, and we'll also place this one down here. And noticing that all the arrows and everything's kind of coming out correctly, we've got that arrow facing outward. You don't want to have these swinging in, obviously. And so those are all placed now. So we're going to go ahead and go to a 3D view. Our roof is hidden currently, so if I hit this Reveal Hidden Elements button and the light bulb at the bottom, I can right-click this and hide and view category for the roof, and then I can check or select that Reveal Hidden Elements again, and it'll show it. We're going to delete this roof because we're going to be drawing a roof on a higher level. And then I deleted that roof that was over this door. Now these look a little funky here, so what I'm going to do is kind of lift these up. You can adjust the head height to be, say, 8 feet, and now that's going to align with that window. This window is not a very good window for the front, so we're going to switch this to that 60 by 42, and we're going to lower that head height back down to 8 feet. The reason it did that is because it was a different type of window, and when you place windows, it's defaulting to your sill height. And so the sill height was defaulted at a higher height. And that's why it came in the way that it did. This one's fine because if this was our kitchen or something like that, we could have a privacy window. There's other reasons why we could do this as well if we had like a bedroom there and wanted some windows up higher. But for now, we've got most of our windows placed. Everything's kind of in the place that I want it. So I'm going to go to a self elevation, and I'm actually going to, before I do that, I'm going to adjust this value. I can edit elements in 3D. So I'm going to move this window down so that it's at 4 feet. Notice it's defaulting to the sill height. I could even go to 3'6" if I wanted to. I could check what this one is by looking at its sill height. That's 3 inches, or 3 feet. So if I wanted this at 3 feet, I could ensure that those are all aligned correctly. Now I'm going to go to my self elevation. I'm going to take a look at this. Everything looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and remove this tag because we just don't need to see it on this particular view. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to Architecture, Level, which is here, and we're going to check Make Plan View, which is right here. We can use our offset value, but to start, I'm going to draw one just 10 feet by using my temporary dimension. So level 3 is drawn now at 20 feet. Now I could adjust this to say, you know what, I want it to be 10 feet, and I can click and drag from here, and it will use the level line to draw it 10 feet higher. I don't generally do this because generally I'm using my model to create the levels, or I'm trying to set a specific level without having to do the math of adding the 10 feet. So I'll leave this at 0 again, and I'll eyeball this temporary dimension to 10 feet. You can also select them and change the dimension here. That's the temporary dimension. You can make that temporary dimension permanent. I could edit these witness lines and come through and add all of these if I wanted to, just to make sure. I didn't add them because I don't want to see them. So I hit escape to end the command, and then I'm going to delete that out and sort of adjust these levels now. So if I click level 8, you'll notice this little hidden / dashed line. If I click and drag this, it'll snap to this level 6, and a click and drag, snap to level 5, click and drag, snap to level 4, click and drag, snap to level 3, and now I can drag all of them out to the end here. So those are all there. That's all in place. We have all of these level markers here, but something that's important is that you can actually turn on the level markers on this side as well by checking these boxes. You could also select all of these simultaneously. You actually can't select all those simultaneously. I thought you'd be able to. Currently, if you check this, it's just turning on the level. So you have to do it one at a time, unfortunately. If you select multiple, it won't allow you to. But if I check that, and check this, now I have my levels showing up on both sides. That's kind of nice because if I'm zoomed in on this side and I want to take a look over here at what level I'm working off of, I can see it. So that's kind of helpful. Now what we want to do is rename level 8 to roof. So I'm going to type it in and call it roof. I prefer to do everything in caps. So you can follow along in caps or you can do it the other way. But once you have that in there, and you hit enter, it's going to pop up a dialog box that says, would you like to rename corresponding views? We're going to say yes. Do not check this just because you're learning Revit at this point, so you want to know what's going on. Once you've used Revit long enough, you could technically turn these off, but it's important to leave them on for now. So we're going to say yes. That's defaulted to roof. If I scroll up here, I'm going to notice that level 8 is changed to roof on my ceiling plan, and it's also changed on my floor plan. And it's also changed on my structural. And the only reason that these are showing up as structural is because building story is selected. I believe also if you change this to structural, that would help kind of alleviate or add those to this value. Let's try it here. It didn't. I can show you how to add views to different areas later, but for now we have level 1 through level 8, which is actually the roof plan. So continuing on, we've renamed those to roof. We're going to go to 3D view, so view 3D. We're going to select the front wall with the entry door in it, which is this one. We're going to right click on that wall, and we're going to say select all instances in entire project. Now the reason you want to say an entire project is if something's hidden or if something's not showing in this particular view, it's going to grab everything. If you only did what was visible, you're going to have some mistakes. So we have those shown. Now what I want to do before I copy these is I actually want to deselect this wall. And the reason I want to deselect this wall is I don't want these garage doors to go all the way up. These doors and windows will go all the way up. I'm going to hit escape here real quick to exit out. I accidentally right-clicked. If you hit escape, it'll go away. These doors and windows will go up, but for the purpose of the lecture, I'll show you what's going to happen. Now, once those are selected, I'm going to hit copy to clipboard. So I'm in the modify walls under copy to clipboard. You'll notice that the paste option was highlighted. That's copied. I'm going to select in white space. So now I've got everything deselected. And then what I'm going to do now is click on the Modify tab again, and you'll notice that paste is still active. And I'm going to drop down and paste a line to selected levels. And I'm going to choose level 2 through 7. I'm not going to choose roof, and I'm not going to choose level 1. The reason we're not going to choose level 1 or roof is if I were to paste to level 1, all of these elements will paste directly over the others. So that's something important to note and understand because it will affect ultimately your ability to paste objects, and it'll create problems down the road because if you're pulling schedules for windows or doors, it's going to pull duplicate values for those levels. So I'm going to hit OK. It's going to run for a second. That's because I have a lot of options selected. And you'll notice that all of the walls copied from level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So now I'm going to select the CMU wall with the garage doors, and I'm going to change this top constraint to go up to roof. And so I'm going to hit apply, and you'll notice it goes all the way up. That's important to understand because now it's constrained to that top level. So if I were to move this level, say, to 80 feet, it'll adjust the walls to go up to 80 feet as well. I'm going to undo that, but it's important to note that those walls are all now snapped to that roof level. Note that they don't really build walls 70 feet tall as a single wall, but you can model it that way. So what's important to understand with what I just said there is that just because it's modeled in Revit doesn't mean it can be built that way. So just bear that in mind, that when you're modeling things, try to, as a draftsperson, try to be as accurate to the real world conditions as possible, because if you start drawing things that are not accurate to real world conditions, you're going to catch a lot of flack from people that build, as well as from architects that don't want to see that, or engineers. So notice the garage doors did not copy up like the doors and windows in the last step. Probably not needing garage doors at level 6. We probably don't even need doors here up to level 6, but for this, we're going to go ahead and leave it. Windows on this wall would be placed on floor plan levels. So windows on this particular wall need to be placed on floor plan levels generally. So we're going to go to floor plan level 2. So scrolling up, we'll deselect structural plans for now. So just minimizing that. Go to level 2. Inside of level 2, you'll notice my view range is a little funky. Currently, I can see down to the level below. So if I edit my view range here, I can see level 2 and my top range is unlimited. I probably only want to see the level above, or we'll say associated level. Let's just see what happens here. Sometimes these get a little funky, and now something to note is that when you show and hide this, it'll affect your values. So what I'm doing is I'm moving this level 2, and it's currently lower than this cut plane. So the cut plane is number 2, primary range cut plane. I want that at 4 feet. So now I'm going to hit apply, and now it's going to work. Now, I don't want to see below currently, and I'll show you why this is doing that. It has a underlay of base level 1. So I could turn that underlay off, and now I'm only looking at level 2. So you can adjust what your underlays are. That is helpful to understand, because if I'm tracing a value from below, such as a ceiling or a wall location, that'll help on level 2 to ensure that my walls are aligned. Now, what we're going to do is place 2 windows, the 30 by 60 windows, with a head height of 8 feet on the CMU wall. So this arc top window 30 by 60, I can right click and create similar, and I can actually come over here and place them here and say here. And now I can hit AL, which is the align tool, and I can align these to the center lines of those windows. Now when I go back into the self elevation, I had just double clicked that self elevation, you'll notice that everything's aligned. So what's nice about that is I have those 2 windows there. It looks pretty good. I'm going to use the control key, and you'll notice that when I hit the control key, I'm getting a plus sign. If I hit the shift key, I'm getting a minus sign. So if I select these 2 windows and this third one, but I actually accidentally selected that, I can hold shift and deselect that, and now I've just got those 2 windows selected. So what's going to happen now is we're going to go to the modify window. We're going to hit copy, and then we're going to paste a line to selected levels, and we're going to go to 3 through 7. And so that's going to go, and now you'll notice that all the windows are placed. So that's super helpful. So now let's look at this in 3D. So if I go to 3D, all of my windows are there. Those are really nice. They look good. And notice that when I go back to the southern elevation, that it's all still there as well. It's just because of the database. Now, one thing that looks really funky in 3D are these separation lines. So they've created what's called a join operation. So if we hit architecture, or sorry, modify, join, you can actually select the level below and the wall above, and it'll go through and start joining these walls to get rid of these lines. So I'm kind of just going through, selecting everything, joining them, and ensuring that I'm getting rid of all of these kind of annoying looking lines. Now if I try to join below, I'm going to get a highlighted elements are joined but do not intersect. That's simply because these elements don't intersect, and therefore they cannot be joined. So I'm going to hit cancel. It didn't end my command. I could do a multiple join, so I could actually join from here to here to here, but in that particular case it's not actually joined, so that doesn't work. So we're not going to do the multiple join in this particular example, but you could join multiple things, and that'd be from like left to right and as well as above. So anything that's intersecting, if you have multiple elements that are intersecting and that look kind of funky. So I'm going through, I'm just kind of clicking these, cleaning it up, making a skyscraper residential house, I guess. And now if I rotate around, it all looks nice and joined. So we went into modify, we hit geometry, or this geometry tab, went to join, join geometry, this one. You can also unjoin, and you can also switch the join order. So we're going to select on level 1. We're going to go to the south elevation wall, which is this one, but we want to go to the one with the front door, which is this one, and we're going to select the wall directly above. So the wall directly above, let's go back to the south elevation. If I select this wall, notice that it's there, but if I go into 3D, and I select that wall, it's still showing just that wall, even though it's joined. So that's something to understand, that even though I joined these, they're not actually completely whole, so they're not completely one wall. They're still individual walls. It's just hiding those. So it's better to plan ahead on the exterior walls if you initially know how high they're going to be. And one last task, let's look back at the exterior elevation sheets on A501. So A501, the exterior elevation sheets look really funky right now. So what happens is, because Revit's a database and because these were placed where they're placed, they're actually overriding those views. What that has to do is with the crop range of the view, as well as what you've drawn. So what I would do is try to tidy up your views like we did on the interior elevations, get them in a good spot. We have north, south, east, west. That's pretty nice. That's generally a pretty good layout. We could actually put these on separate sheets. I have them at an 1/8 inch scale. I think that'll be fine. But we could make new sheets. What we could do is put the north and south elevations on a sheet and then put the east and west elevations on a sheet. I think that's going to be a good idea. So we're going to put north and south on this set, and we can kind of align them however we want. I can activate the views and pull these values in to give it a little bit of breathing room. And then I can kind of arrow key it over if I need to, and then drag this back, this view title back. And what that's going to do is it just helps kind of tidy this drawing up. So we're going to go back in here. I'm going to click and drag. And you'll notice that as I'm dragging this, it's updating all the levels simultaneously. That's important to note. So now those are in a good position. We can kind of lower them out down to here. I did delete those views off the sheet, but it didn't delete them from the sheet off of our project browser. The only way that that would happen would be if you actually just deleted them from here. Or if you went into your level 1 and deleted these. It is a common mistake to delete these, and they are able to come back. We learned how if we went to view elevation, we could place new elevations. We could place a new building elevation. So if you ever end up accidentally deleting one, don't freak out. It's not the end of the world. If you did annotate that view, then it can be bothersome because you'll have to go back and update the dimensions and things like that. But for this particular example, this is functional. So what we're going to do is we're going to create A501. So we're going to right click on sheets, new sheet, D-size, and I'm going to rename this sheet. I can rename it here, or I can rename it from the sheet itself. So I could say A502, and then I could name it exterior elevations and hit enter. And now you'll notice that that's updated. I can drag over the east and west elevations. And now notice that line aligned, and then if I go a little bit down, that one aligns. You always really want to align the building to itself, because if I were to print this out and print out a ruler, or print this out and put a ruler up to it, it would actually align perfectly to the bottom of the floors. So that's the best thing to do, and then to come down and update your view title. So just note to do that. So now look at the building section A601 sheet. So we're going to go to A601, building sections. I don't really have a tall view. It's a little short. So I'm going to move this down, activate the view, display the crop region, which shows right here where it says do not crop view. I actually want to show crop region. And then I'm going to adjust this crop region up. And I'm going to adjust it up just to the height to where I can see that, or I can go a little bit higher in case I add a roof or something like that. And then in this one, I'm now going to hide that crop view and then deactivate the view. And so that's just important to know that your section didn't update with the crop view. It's because we had adjusted the crop view in the past, and therefore you need to align it to make sure that it's showing correctly. Now, once we've activated the view, we turned on the crop region box. We pulled it up to expose the entire building section. We turned off the crop again, deactivated the view. Notice how they were updating with us all along. Building information modeling in Revit allows us to focus more on our design and less on coordinating our construction documents. But it's important to know what those construction documents are doing when you place them down. So it is nice to focus just on the design, but the drawing aspect of it, once it's set up correctly, will update very accurately. So we also showed how to delete views on sheets, creating a new sheet and then adding the view again. We just did that with this exterior elevations A502 sheet. That was super helpful. We tried using the same, we didn't try using the same sheet number. So if I go back to A502 and I try to say A501, it's going to say sheet number is already in use, enter a unique number. So don't try to use that. If that's the case, don't fret. Just make sure that you don't have that title or that number in there. So you've learned how to create multiple levels, strategies for multi-level buildings, and leveraging information from one floor to another. So we're going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to go back to level 1 before I save it. And we're going to hit File, Save As, Project, Revit Demo. I'm going to change 9 to 10 and hit Save. And I'll see you in the next lecture.